I have a chapter here where I advocate the abolition of the UN, just to put it very bluntly, because the UN to me is probably the most dysfunctional, abusive international body in existence today. And it served a purpose at its founding at the end of World War II and the beginning of the Cold War. But when you look at literally all the unemployed bureaucrats from third world countries that basically between them, their wives, mistresses, run the place, and all the money they steal but have diplomatic immunity, so they're not accountable, but a lot of which was exposed during the oil for food program in Iraq. But if you look at the biggest, how do I use this, the right term here, the biggest traffickers of prostitution, child abuse are UN forces in the various countries they sit in. And the way, and even the UN in its own internal studies has acknowledged this. But again, it's not something that is widespread in the media. And when you look at a body that was founded at the end of World War II, when most of the world was run by American and the European colonizers, and most of Africa, Asia, Latin America were colonies, but today they're independent countries. It's time to acknowledge that maybe, just like the League of Nations was abolished, it's time to abolish the UN and come up with a new body that is representative of the world today. And the other thing I recommend is that it be moved from New York to either Asia or the West Coast, because it was based in New York on land. By the way, that was an original abattoir. That's where all the meat was killed to provide New York and the nearby territories, because the Cold War was in Europe. I don't think we have to worry about anything in Europe today other than maybe Russia. But if you really look at Russia, most of Russia is actually on the Pacific, not in Europe. And most of the threats to global issues today are in Asia. I don't care if you want to talk Afghanistan. Iraq, by the way, is in Asia. It's not. Middle East is, if you look at the way the Brits carved up the world, Iraq is part of Asia. And the way the Brits carved up the world was the Far East, the Middle East, and Near East. But if you look at Iraq, it's actually on the Asian continent. You look at all the other conflicts, Kashmir, India, Pakistan, Indonesia, Philippines, you pick a country that's Burma, they're all in Asia. So why are we dealing with a global body that's based in New York dealing with Europe? Let's move it to either the West Coast of the US, LA's not a bad place, or Hong Kong or any other place in Asia, and come up with a new structure that is relevant to the 21st century.
How would you propose that get done, and what would your mission statement for this new governing body be?
Regional conflicts be governed by regional bodies. Just like in Latin America, you have the Organization of American States. In Africa, you have the African Union. In the Middle East, you've got the Organization of, the Arab League. There's all these local organizations, but at a global level, because you know what, right now, all those countries and unemployed bureaucrats that basically live off the UN budgets that are primarily funded by the US, guess what? If they've got to pay for their own keep, they're going to watch the money a lot closer. And at a global level, I think it should be done by region. So at the Security Council level, it should be major civilizations. America, Russia, Europe should have one vote, not all the votes they have today between the French and the English. And then the rotating ones, they've got a few others. Muslim countries make Pakistan the first representative of the Muslim world, so that India as a civilization won't have a problem, and the Muslim world won't have a problem with India there. And by creating a global body that is representative of the different civilizations, and of course China and Asia, and everyone pays their pro rata share. If you look at the way the UN budget is structured today, all these, banana republics basically pay nothing. It's the Europeans and the Americans that pay everything. You want to participate, you pay. If you want to play, to use a Hollywood term. You don't pay, you don't play. And guess what? When you're paying money, all of a sudden it doesn't go to your unemployed bureaucrats, their wives and mistresses and kids and all the other things. So, and most importantly, you create a military force of that body that is an integrated military force where they all can work together with everything from command and control to troops on the ground, that have a military force that can be dispatched to any crisis area. Like take Somalia right now with all the pirates, right? They're pirating all this. UN doesn't know what to do. Why? Because every time the UN decides to create a military force of the blue caps, they get the Bangladeshis together with the Danes, and let's get some Lebanese here and some French, all who have military equipment that has nothing to do with each other. They can't communicate with each other. Half the times, if you look at what happens in these military operations, more UN soldiers are killed by other UN soldiers because they're not communicating. Because they bring these disparate forces, and right now the Chinese are playing a great role in Sudan and Haiti and other places. And I point out that that's a lesson that America didn't learn in Iraq. You go look at the history, which is why history is so important. Look at every foreign war America's been in. If it hasn't left the right administration in power, the minute they sail away, it's back to the same old ways. Same's going to happen in Iraq unless there's other policies. So.